Welcome to Random Flyer, the channel that brings you the true stories of New Zealand's airline history. Today, we're talking about Air New Zealand's Boeing 737-300 fleet, where they came from and where they went. We're going to learn about preserved airframes, scrapped planes, hijackings, and bombings. These are their stories. The Boeing 737-300 was the most common variant of the Classic series. Development of the Classic variant began in 1979 with the first A737-300 that first flew in February 1984, entering service in December that year. Compared with the 200s, the 300s were redesigned with a CFM International CFM56 engine for better fuel economy, and they had upgraded avionics. It was about 3 metres longer than the 200, carried around 20 extra passengers or several tonnes more weight. The wing incorporated a number of changes for improved aerodynamics. The wingtip was extended by 9 inches or 23 centimetres, and the leading edge slats and trailing edge flaps were adjusted. Production of the 300 ran from 1984 until Air New Zealand received the final production 737-300 on Friday, 17 December 1999. In total, 1,113 737-300s were produced. All of the Air New Zealand 737-300s were produced at the Boeing 737 Final Assembly Facility in Renton, located south of Seattle. When Air New Zealand took delivery of its first 300 on 8 January 1998, it still had a fleet of 12 200 series airplanes, mostly acquired during the mid-1980s. That final 12 left the fleet between July 1998 and January 2003, during which time 15 300 series had arrived, replacing the 200s at an almost like-for-like scale. Air New Zealand kept bringing new and leased 300s online until 2008, by which time the Airbus A320 fleet had started building up. ZK-NGB is a Boeing 737-36Q and was first flown at Boeing 737 Final Assembly in Renton on Sunday 15 March 1998 and was delivered to Air New Zealand on lease from Bullion Aviation Services on 31st of March that year. It served with Air New Zealand until it was withdrawn from use on 29 February 2004. Remaining with Bullion, it was then leased to Shandong Airlines in China as B5098 on 7 May 2004. Initially it remained under lease from Bullion until May 2005, when ownership moved to Aviation Capital Group. The leased plane was moved to Canadian North on 16 February 2012 and was re-registered as CGCNU in an all-economy 136-seat configuration. While with Canadian North, it had a pair of winglets installed and was designated a Boeing 737-36Q winglet equipped. From September 2024, the aircraft was placed in long-term storage at Edmonton until 22nd May 2025 when it was returned to service. NGB remains in service for Canadian North at its base at Yellowknife Airport at Northwest Territories, aged 27 years. ZK-NGC is a Boeing 737-36Q that first flew on Thursday, 16 July 1998 at the Boeing factory at Renton, and it was delivered new to Air New Zealand on 4 August 1998. It was also leased from Bullion Aviation Services. It was configured in a mixed-class layout with 8 business and 114 economy, and it served the airline's short-haul network until its withdrawal in 2004, along with Bullion's stablemate NGB. It was also placed with Shandong Airlines in China as B5099, delivered to them on 1st July 2004. It remained under Bullion Aviation Services lease until June 2005, when ownership was transferred to Aviation Capital Group. Canadian North took delivery of the plane about 4 months after NGB went to them on 19 June 2012 as CGCNK. It was converted to a single-class 136-seat layout and served northern Canadian operators for more than a decade. By 2024 it was withdrawn from service and stored at Edmonton until September 2024 before being moved to Tbilisi, Georgia on 15 September 2024, where it is currently being stored, aged 27 years. ZK-NGG is a Boeing 737-319 and first flew at the Boeing factory at Renton on Friday 17 September 1999 and was accepted there by Air New Zealand on 14 October 1999. It was configured for 133 passengers in an all-economy layout. This aircraft served throughout the 2000s on domestic and short-haul international routes. Then after more than 15 years of service, it was withdrawn from use on Thursday 14 May 2015. Following retirement, NGG was converted for cargo use and entered service with Aloha Air Cargo in the United States as N303KH, a Boeing 737-319 special freighter. On 19 June 2015, NGG joined Aloha's Honolulu-based fleet, leased from Automatic LLC, and operated inter-island and mainland cargo routes. By August 2025, NGG was placed in temporary storage at Anchorage from 7 August 2025 before being moved to Marana on 27 September, where it remains parked, age 26 years. ZK NGH was a Boeing 737-319 and was first flown at the Renton Final Assembly Factory for Boeing on Wednesday, 13 October 1999, and was delivered new to Air New Zealand on 27 October as ZK NGH. It was configured with 133 passenger seats and was powered by two CFM56-3C1 engines. It served across the airline's domestic and short-haul routes for 15 years, and after a long and reliable career, the aircraft was withdrawn from use on 5 November 2014. NGH was later transferred to Nauru Airlines, delivered on 3 December 2014 as VHYNU, and reconfigured for 130 passengers. The aircraft continued passenger service until being withdrawn on 15 January 2021, and was ferried to Miami for cargo conversion, where it remained until June 2021. Upon completion, it was re-registered as N256NA. Upon completion, NGH re-entered Nauru Airlines fleet on 6 July 2021, once again registered as VHYNU, but now operating as a Boeing 737-319 special freighter. Most recently, NGH has been stored at Brisbane and at Seletar on the northeast of Singapore from August 2025, where it remains parked, age 26 years. ZK, NGD, NGE, and NGF were 3 planes that were acquired by Air New Zealand in the late 1990s that had originated as an unfulfilled order for Garuda Indonesia, but were not taken up. They were purchased by Air New Zealand and immediately leased out to various operators for a short period of time. ZK FRE was also an ex-Garuda machine but did not come to Air New Zealand immediately. ZK NGD is a Boeing 737-3U3 and was the first of 4 planes that had been destined for Garuda. It was first flown at the Boeing 737 Final Assembly at Renton on Wednesday, 10 December 1997. After being stored at Marana, Arizona, the aircraft was leased from Air New Zealand to Winair in the US on 25 November 1998 as N930WA. In 1999, the lease was transferred to LOT Polish Airlines but registered ZK-NGD, delivered on 19 March 1999. Later that same year, on 31st of October, it joined Air New Zealand's own fleet in a 133-seat configuration, where it served until retirement and later lease transfer to ACAP. After a long period in storage, the aircraft re-emerged in the Pacific region, where it was delivered to Nauru Airlines as VHONU on 22 August 2014, configured for 130 passengers. In July 2020, it was ferried to Miami for cargo conversion, but returned to the Pacific in December 2020 and re-entered service with Nauru as a Boeing 737-3U3 special freighter on 15 January 2021, where it continues to operate cargo flights between Honiara and Brisbane and Nauru. ZK NGF was a Boeing 737-3U3 and first flew on Tuesday, 23 December 1997 at Renton. It was the second of 4 that began as an unfulfilled order for Garuda Indonesia. The plane was purchased by Air New Zealand and immediately leased to Frontier Airlines in the United States on 4 December 1998 and registered there as N309FL. It was configured with 136 all-economy seats and powered by 2 CFM56-3C1 engines. The aircraft carried the distinctive Atlantic puffin tail design, part of Frontier's famous wildlife-themed livery series of the late 1990s and early 2000s. On 5th of May 2000, the aircraft joined Air New Zealand's fleet as ZK-NGF, reconfigured to a 133-seat layout for short and medium-haul operations across the airline's Pacific and domestic networks. The aircraft was sold and leased back from ACAP and remained in the fleet until it was withdrawn from service and stored at Christchurch in 2011, where it was broken up in August 2012, aged 15 years. ZK-NGE is a Boeing 737-3U3 and first flew on 28 December 1999 at the Boeing 737 Final Assembly in Renton. It was the third of 4 aircraft in an unfulfilled order for Garuda Indonesia, which was not taken up and sold to Air New Zealand. The aircraft was leased from Air New Zealand to Winair in the United States as N931WA on 14 December 1998. It was subsequently placed with Novair of Sweden on 31st of March 1999 and registered ZK-NGE, again leased from Air New Zealand. During its time with Novair, it carried the promotional Las Vegas Vintermed Apollo sticker. Later that year, on 1st November 1999, the aircraft was reconfigured for 133 passenger seats and joined Air New Zealand's fleet. After more than a decade in service, it was withdrawn on 10 January 2013 and flown to Shannon in Ireland, where it was stored from 2013 to 2014. In July 2013, the aircraft was registered to KV Aviation and leased to Fly Vista of Georgia as 4L AJW on 5th September 2014. NGE continued its leasing career with Malathero of Malta when they took it in April 2015, and later Bluebird Airways of Greece in May 2018. Bluebird operated the aircraft until December 2022 when it was withdrawn from use and stored at Johannesburg, South Africa. After storage, NGE joined Africa Charter Airline as ZSTFY in June 2023, entering service on 1st of July and currently flying several times a day between Johannesburg, Durban and Cape Town, and has aged 27 years. ZKFRE is a Boeing 737-3U3 assembled at Renton and first flew there on Thursday, 22nd January 1998. It was the fourth of 4 planes ordered by Garuda but not taken up. The aircraft was stored and subsequently entered service with Pro Air in the United States on 19 November 1998. 1 year later, on 17 November 1999, it joined Freedom Air International of New Zealand as ZKFRE, leased from Air New Zealand. It was later absorbed into Air New Zealand's own fleet on 3 September 2000, repainted in holiday special colours, before eventually being retired. The aircraft then moved to Brazil, joining Webjet Linhas Aéreas as PRWJQ from December 2009 until April 2013. Following service with Webjet, it passed to GE Capital Aviation Services and immediately leased to Viva Aerobus in Mexico as XAVAD, remaining in service, spending a year in storage at Tarabas Lourdes Airport from 2016 to 2017. Following this period, FRE was leased to SCAT Airlines of Kazakhstan as UPB3718 in June 2017, where it served until October 2023. In December 2024, FRE passed to Georgian Wings as 4L UKA. Its latest operators are Tecon Aviation, where it's registered T7356. It was delivered to them in April 2025, and Caspian Airlines as EPSOL, and they took delivery of it on 16 August 2025. This aircraft remains in service, flying around the Middle East, primarily from Iran, aged 27 years. ZKNGI is a Boeing 737 and first flew from the Boeing factory in Renton on Wednesday, 3 November 1999 and was accepted there by Air New Zealand on 20 November 1999 with the registration ZKNGI. Configured for 133 passengers, NGI served on the airline's domestic and short-haul routes before being withdrawn from use in September 2015. NGI flew Air New Zealand's last 737 service, NZ557, from Auckland to Christchurch on Sunday, 6 September 2015. Following its withdrawal, the aircraft was acquired by Kelowna Flightcraft of Canada, where it was registered CGKFA and delivered to them on 15 October 2015. In March 2018, it passed to CSDS Aircraft Leasing and Sales Service as N737FA, and then in April 2019 to TVPX Trust Services, which managed the aircraft until its storage at Amman, Jordan, between October 2019 and February 2021. In 2021, NGI was delivered to UR Airlines of Iraq and registered there as YIBAU, and ferried to Baghdad, Iraq on 25 February 2021. It continued passenger service across the Middle East until an incident on 23 August 2025, when the aircraft was operating a domestic flight across Iraq, when it suffered a loss of cabin pressure and diverted safely to Baghdad. It remained at Baghdad Airport until 27 November 2025, when it was flown from there to Istanbul, where it remains, aged 26 years. ZKNGJ is a Boeing 737-319 and was the last Boeing 737-300 ever built. It was ordered new by Air New Zealand and first flew on Friday, 3 December 1999 at the Boeing factory in Renton. It was accepted there by Air New Zealand on 17 December 1999 and was registered ZKNGJ. It was configured for 133 passengers and was powered by 2 CFM56 3C1 engines. The aircraft spent more than 15 years operating domestic and short-haul services for the airline before being withdrawn from use on 10 August 2015. Soon afterwards, NGJ joined Nauru Airlines on 22nd September 2015 and registered there as VHXNU. In Nauru Airline service, it was configured with 10 business and 114 economy seats and continues in service, age 26 years. ZKNGK was a Boeing 737-3K2 and first flew on Thursday, 8 June 1995 at Renton. It spent its whole life owned by ILFC. It was leased out to various operators. It began with Transavia in the Netherlands, delivered to them on 28 June 1995 as PHTSX, configured for 109 passengers and was powered by two CFM56 3C1 engines. It operated European leisure routes, and in January 1996 the aircraft was subleased to Air One of Italy. It returned to Transavia on 31st March 1996, continuing with them until early 1999. That February, the jet was transferred to Freedom Air International of New Zealand, entering service on Tuesday, 9 February 1999, to support Freedom Air's low-cost operations across the Tasman. When its New Zealand tenure ended, it reverted to Transavia on 1st April 1999 and was withdrawn from use on 1st November 2000, concluding its career with the Dutch carrier, at which point it returned to the Air New Zealand group, this time for the mainline fleet as ZK-NGK, delivered to Air New Zealand on 8 November 2000. This jet served Air New Zealand until its retirement and storage at Christchurch on 20 May 2013. NGK was partially broken up in September 2014 at Christchurch, with the cockpit section mounted on a trailer as part of the Air New Zealand 75 Years Our Nation, the World travelling exhibition, while the rear fuselage and wing route serve as a fire training aid. ZK-NGN is a Boeing 737-33S and first flew on Friday, 13 March 1998. It was originally delivered to Sobel Air in Belgium as OO-SLK on 30 March 1998 and configured for 148 passengers. After several years in European charter service, the aircraft was transferred to Air New Zealand, where it became NGN, delivered to them on Wednesday, 4 April 2001. It operated exclusively on domestic and short-haul services across New Zealand and the Pacific before being retired in the mid-2000s. Following Air New Zealand service, the plane went to Norwegian Air Shuttle as LNKKX, delivered to them on 6 April 2006, and was briefly painted in the airline's Network Norway special colours between April 2007 and November 2008. It went into storage at Oslo from November 2014 until being acquired by Bull Air of Bulgaria as LZBVL in April 2017. It was then leased to Condor from that July and again to Alan Air from May 2018 before ultimately returning to Bull Air on 30 October 2019, where it remains active, based in Eastern Europe and flying out to the Middle East and North Africa. Age 27 years. ZK-NGM is a Boeing 737-3K2 and first flew on Friday, 5 May 1995 at the Boeing factory at Renton and began its operational life with Transavia in the Netherlands, delivered to them on 30 May 1995 under the registration PHTSY. Configured for 109 passengers, it was leased from ILFC and operated European leisure routes through the mid-1990s. In November 2001, the aircraft was then leased to Air New Zealand as ZK-NGM, entering service in a 133-passenger all-economy configuration and serving across the airline's domestic and short-haul networks. The aircraft was withdrawn from use by them on 18 July 2013 and flown to Goodyear Phoenix for storage awaiting resale. Following its time in storage, the aircraft was re-registered in the United States as N280CL, initially with Cara Capital Corporation in November 2013 and later Aviator Capital from May 2014. NGM then joined Magni Charters of Mexico as XAUUI on 6 June 2014, where it continued active passenger service until November 2021, when it was finally withdrawn from use and put into storage, aged 31 years. ZK-NGO is a Boeing 737-37Q and was first flown on Sunday, 9 November 1997 at Renton, and began its career with British Airways, leased from GE Aviation Services, delivered to them new on 9 December 1997 as GOAMS. The aircraft was configured with 126 economy seats and featured the airline's Rendezvous World Tail design, part of British Airways' multicultural livery series of the late 1990s. It served on short-haul European routes before being withdrawn from use on 1 September 2002. In October 2002, NGO joined Air New Zealand, retaining the registration initially and continuing under lease from GE. Shortly afterwards, it was re-registered ZK-NGO and officially entered the Air New Zealand fleet on 17 October 2002. The aircraft operated in a 133-seat all-economy layout, flying domestic and short-haul trans-Tasman services for more than a decade. By early 2014, NGO was withdrawn from use and returned to the lessor. It was subsequently stored at Goodyear from March 2014 till January the following year. The airframe later reappeared under the registration N285CL, managed by Cara Capital Corporation, on 1 April 2014. Later that year, it joined Boliviana de Aviación, or BOA, as CP2920, delivered on 23 December 2014 in a 138-seat layout, and appears to have been withdrawn from use and put into storage, age 28 years. ZK NGA is a Boeing 737-33R and first flown on Thursday 11 December 1997, delivered new to Air New Zealand on 9 January 1998. Leased from GE. While in service with Air New Zealand, it was transferred to Freedom Air International on 13 September 2004. The aircraft later returned to the Air New Zealand fleet on 27 April 2005. The lease was then transferred to Estonian Air as ES-ABJ, delivered to them on 15 March 2006. In April 2012, it joined Air Onyx of Ukraine as URKRA, where it was active until December 2013 and stored in Bucharest Airport for 2014, during which time it was returned to GE. NGA was purchased by Aerovista and leased to Hermes Airlines of Greece from May 2015. Fly 365 Aviation from July 2016. Cobrex Trans from May 2017, and GetJet Airlines from October 2017, before finally settling with Fly Armenia Airways, registered EKFAA, at the beginning of 2020. NGA, while it was leased by Fly Armenia Airways, then went missing on February 20th. The company said that it was undergoing repairs in Estonia's capital, Tallinn, and was due to proceed to Ukraine for further maintenance. It said the plane flew instead to Varna, Bulgaria, before ending up at Tehran's Mehrabad Airport. According to reports, it was stolen by Tajik pilots who flew it to Tehran as part of a sanctions workaround to relieve spares shortages for other 737-300s, which are common in the region. Pilots were working for the owners, who, it is presumed, never intended for it to go to Armenia. The plane was returned to Armenia on 23 April 2020. ZK SJC is a Boeing 737-3U3 and first flew on Tuesday 13 January 1998 at the Boeing plant in Renton and began life with Frontier Airlines, leased from GECAS. Delivered on 23 November 1998, it was registered N308FL. It was configured for 136 passengers. The aircraft carried Frontier's distinctive pronghorn antelope tail design from the airline's popular Wildlife series. In September 2001, it was transferred to Freedom Air International of New Zealand as ZK SJC, still leased from GE, and configured with 142 seats. Freedom Air operated the jet on Trans-Tasman and Pacific routes until 2005, when it was absorbed into the Air New Zealand mainline fleet on 8 June 2005. Reconfigured for 133 passengers, the aircraft served on domestic services until its withdrawal from use in 2013, when it was stored at Opaloka. Later that year, it was delivered to Bolivana de Aviación, BOA, as CP-2815, arriving at Bolivia on 25 November 2013. The aircraft served BOA's domestic network until it was withdrawn from use and stored at George Wilstermann International Airport in Bolivia in 2018, aged 28 years. ZK SJE is a Boeing 737-3K2 and first flew on Tuesday 2 May 1995 from Renton, where it began its life with Transavia in the Netherlands, originally leased from ILFC and delivered on 17 May 1995 under the registration PHTSZ. During this period, the ownership passed to MSAF in November 1997 and then AWAS in April 2000. In October 2001, the aircraft moved to New Zealand, entering service with Freedom Air International as ZK SJE, continuing to be leased from AWAS, and was reconfigured for 142 passengers. It operated Trans-Tasman routes under Air New Zealand's low-cost subsidiary until September 2005, when it was absorbed into the Air New Zealand mainline fleet, retaining the same registration. It was reconfigured for 133 passengers and continued domestic operations until being withdrawn from use on 13 December 2011. Following its retirement from New Zealand service, the aircraft was transferred to Mexico as XAVIT, joining Viva Aerobus on 26 March 2012. It flew short-haul services for 4 years before being withdrawn from use on 9 April 2016 and being stored at Tucson, Arizona until 18 November 2017. It was acquired by the Alessa Aircraft Leasing Company as 2AVIT in October 2017 and subsequently entered service with Avia Traffic Company of Kyrgyzstan on 22 January 2018 as EX37015, configured for 148 passengers, and continues in service with them flying from Russia to Kyrgyzstan, age 31 years. ZK SJB is a Boeing 737-33R and first flew on Thursday 24 April 1997 at Renton, and it began its career with Western Pacific Airlines in the United States, leased from Oryx Aviation. It was delivered to them on 14 May 1997 and registered N 963WP was configured for 138 passengers. After Western Pacific's collapse, the aircraft was placed with VASP in Brazil on 9 May 1998 as PPSFK. By June 2000, the aircraft joined Freedom Air International of New Zealand as ZKSJB, operating low-cost Trans-Tasman and Pacific Island services for the Air New Zealand Group. In November 2005, it transitioned to Air New Zealand proper, where it continued on domestic operations with a 133-seat configuration. After nearly 14 years in the region, it was withdrawn from service on 28 February 2014 as part of Air New Zealand's retirement of the 737 Classic fleet. Following its retirement, SJB was transferred to Kara Capital Corporation, registered N886CL on 14 April 2014, and leased to Bolivana de Aviación BOA as CP2921, delivered to them on 20 February 2015. Now configured for 138 passengers, it continues to operate for BOC and domestic routes based from Santa Cruz. ZK-NGP is a Boeing 737-33A and first flew on Monday 23 February 1998 from the Boeing facility at Renton. It was originally delivered to Air Malta, leased from Ansett Worldwide Aviation Services, on 12 March 1998 as 9HADH and was configured for 138 passengers. In November 1999, it was subleased to Azur Air of Italy. The aircraft then returned to Air Malta in March 2000, again leased to Azur Air from December 2000, and it returned once more to Malta in March 2001 and continued under the Ansett lease until final retirement from Maltese service. It later joined Air New Zealand as ZK-NGP, delivered on 19 March 2008 and reconfigured for 133 passengers. It operated domestic and short-haul routes and remained active until being withdrawn from use and stored in Christchurch on 10 August 2014. It was then ferried to Goodyear and stored there until April 29, 2015. While in storage, the aircraft ownership was transferred from Ansett to Kahala Aviation Leasing in May 2015 and flown to Tampa, Florida for cargo conversion. It emerged there as a Boeing 737-33A special freighter and entered service with Texel Air of Bahrain as A9C APC on 29 September 2015. The jet served Texel until June 2024, and it was withdrawn from use and stored in Armenia from 23 October 2024. More recently, the aircraft was delivered to Armenia Airways as EK 73750 on 14 January 2025, continuing its second career as a dedicated cargo freighter. ZK-NGR was a Boeing 737-33A and first flew on Tuesday 7 April 1998 and began life with Air Malta, delivered on 22 April 1998, registered 9HADI. It was configured for 138 passengers and was powered by two CFM56 3C1 engines. It was leased from Ansett Worldwide Aviation Services and served in the airline's short and medium-haul European networks through the late 1990s and early 2000s. In May 2008, the aircraft transitioned to Air New Zealand as ZK-NGR, joining the carrier's domestic and Trans-Tasman fleet in a 133-seat all-economy layout. It remained in service for several years before being withdrawn from use on 28 March 2015. The aircraft was later re-registered N460KA under Kahala Aviation Leasing, where it was converted to a freighter and delivered on 1 May 2015 to Tri-MG Intra-Asia Airlines in Indonesia, operating as PKYGW. On 28 November 2020, NGR was involved in a runway incursion event. While departing Singapore Airport for Jakarta in Indonesia, the plane was instructed by air traffic control to hold short of runway 02 Charlie on taxiway Echo 11. However, the plane continued and entered the runway without ATC clearance. The microwave barrier detection system triggered an alert to the runway controller, who then instructed the crew to vacate the runway as another aircraft was on approach. The aircraft exited the runway and subsequently cleared for takeoff without further incident. In August 2021, NGR was transferred to Asia Cargo Airlines of Indonesia, retaining the registration PKYGW. It continued regional cargo operations across Southeast Asia until it was withdrawn from use by them and transferred to Khartoum in Sudan on Friday 14 April 2023. The following day, on Saturday 15 April 2023, an armed conflict between Sudanese forces and the rival paramilitary Rapid Support Force, or RSF, began when the RSF launched an attack on multiple Sudanese bases across the country, including the capital of Khartoum. Fighting continued the following days, and NGR was destroyed there on 19 April 2023. Air New Zealand retired its iconic Boeing 737 aircraft, with the final flight, NZ557, between Auckland and Christchurch being operated by ZK-NGI on September 6, 2015. With that closed a chapter of domestic and trans-Tasman aviation that the airline had been writing since the late 1960s.